What made you realize your dream job was actually a living nightmare? I quit my dream job today after discovering my boss was illegally selling my designs to competitors while paying me barely above minimum wage. For 2 years I worked 70-hour weeks thinking I was building my career at a prestigious design studio, only to find out I was essentially being used as cheap labor while he made millions off my work. When I confronted him with evidence, he laughed and said, "What did you expect? This is how the industry works." I just walked out, leaving behind all my designs and a resignation letter detailing his fraud for the entire office to see. Now I'm sitting in my car wondering if I just made the biggest mistake of my life or finally stood up for myself. Let me start from the beginning. I'm Ellie, 27, and I've wanted to be a graphic designer since I was 12. I went to a good design school, graduated with honors, and spent 3 years building my portfolio while working retail jobs to pay the bills. Then came the opportunity of a lifetime, an interview at Harper Design Studio, one of the most prestigious boutique design firms in the city. Their client list included major fashion brands, tech companies, and even some celebrity brands. Getting hired there was basically a golden ticket in our industry. The interview with James Harper, the founder and creative director, was intimidating but exhilarating. He had this charismatic energy that filled the room, tall, always dressed impeccably in tailored clothes, with this perfect salt and pepper beard that made him look like he belonged on the cover of some Entrepreneurs of the Year magazine. He spent nearly 2 hours going through my portfolio, asking insightful questions, challenging my design choices in ways that showed he really understood the craft. When he offered me the job, I nearly cried. The salary was lower than I expected, about $38,000, but he explained that everyone starts at the bottom at Harper Design. "This is about earning your place," he said. "In this industry, you don't start with the paycheck. You start with the opportunity, and you build from there." It made sense to me. Plus, he dangled the carrot of profit sharing once I proved my value and mentioned that junior designers typically moved up within a year. I took the job without hesitation. The office itself was everything I dreamed of: exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek workstations with the latest design equipment. There were only 8 other designers, all seemingly passionate and dedicated. Most were in their late 20s or early 30s, and they all spoke about James like he was some kind of design god. In those first few weeks, I was walking on air despite the long hours. I'd often be there from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m., but it didn't matter because I was paying my dues at my dream job. 6 months in, I started noticing some red flags. The promised performance review never happened. When I gently brought it up, James said, "In this economy, you're lucky to have a job at all." Then he softened it with, "But I've noticed your good work. Keep it up, and we'll talk bonuses soon." That was enough to keep me motivated for another few months. The workload was intense. I was handling projects for major clients, often single-handedly, while James took all the client meetings. He'd come back with feedback that always seemed to involve complete redesigns at the last minute. The client hated the direction, he'd say, or they needed to be more modern/classic/edgy/simple. I was regularly pulling all-nighters to meet deadlines. What struck me as odd was how rarely I actually spoke to clients directly. In design, client interaction is crucial, understanding their vision, their feedback, the nuances of what they're looking for. But James insisted on being the sole point of contact. "Clients are paying for my expertise and vision," he explained. "Trust me, I'm translating their needs in a way that sets you up for success." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was James Harper, after all. By my 1-year anniversary, I'd seen 3 designers quit. They never gave specific reasons, just vague comments about pursuing other opportunities or needing a change. Each time, James would gather the remaining team and talk about how some people just can't handle the pressure of excellence or how not everyone is cut out for high-level design work. It was manipulative, but effective. It made those of us who stayed feel special, chosen, elite. My breakthrough moment came because of a spilled coffee. I was working late, again, and I accidentally knocked over my mug onto some paperwork on James's desk when I was dropping off completed designs. As I scrambled to clean it up, I noticed something strange: a contract with a company name I didn't recognize, but featuring mock-ups of a logo I had designed for a completely different client months earlier. At first, I thought maybe it was just similar. Design trends can lead to comparable outcomes. But no, this was my work. The distinctive curves, the specific color palette I had custom created, even the font pairing I was particularly proud of. But the client name was different, and the contract date was recent, just 2 weeks ago. I quickly took photos with my phone and left everything as I found it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Was James reselling my designs? It seemed impossible. Unethical. Illegal, even. But the evidence was right there. The next day, I came in early and did something I'm not proud of. I searched through James's emails while he was at a client meeting. What I found made me physically ill. For at least the past year, James had been selling my designs, and those of my colleagues, to multiple clients. A logo I created for a high-end restaurant was sold with minor modifications to 3 different businesses in different states. Branding packages I'd labored over for weeks were being resold at premium prices to companies we'd never officially worked with. And the prices he was charging? Far, far more than what was listed in our company's official contracts. A branding package that was billed to our recognized client at $15,000 was being sold to shadow clients for $30,000 or more. This wasn't just unethical, it was fraud. And copyright infringement. And a massive breach of trust with both employees and clients. I spent a week gathering evidence, downloading emails, taking screenshots. I found an entire folder of alternate clients with contracts and invoices for work that had been repurposed and resold. I discovered that the profit sharing James had promised was a complete fabrication. There was no such program. I even found emails where he laughed about how he had trained his designers to accept pathetic salaries. The final straw was finding an email thread with another design agency owner where James literally referred to me as my workhorse who has no idea what her stuff is actually worth. They joked about how they could keep designers ignorant and desperate for approval. They're like beaten dogs, the other person wrote. Throw them an occasional bone of recognition and they'll stay loyal forever. I couldn't believe what I was reading. For 2 years, I'd idolized this man. I defended him to friends and family who questioned why I was working such long hours for such little pay. He's teaching me so much, I'd insist. This experience is worth more than money. What a fool I'd been. I consulted with a lawyer friend who confirmed that what James was doing was absolutely illegal on multiple fronts. She advised me to report him to the relevant authorities and potentially pursue a civil case for lost wages and damages. But first, I needed to confront him. I scheduled a meeting with James, making it sound routine. When I walked into his office yesterday morning, he had that same charming smile he always wore, the one I now realized was completely predatory. "James," I said, my voice steadier than I expected, "I know about the shadow clients. I know you've been selling my work multiple times over." His face didn't change at first. Then something shifted in his eyes, not shame or guilt, but calculation. "Ellie, I think you've misunderstood something. Design work belongs to the studio, not the individual designer. That's standard in any agency." "I understand that," I replied, "but reselling the exact same designs to multiple clients without their knowledge isn't standard. It's fraud." He leaned back in his chair and laughed. Actually laughed. "What did you expect? This is how the industry works. The clients are happy with their designs, you got paid for your time, and the studio makes a profit. Everyone wins. I get paid barely above minimum wage when you calculate my actual hours," I said, pushing my phone toward him with a spreadsheet I'd created. "Based on these shadow contracts, you've made over $2 million from my work alone in the past year. My cut of that, even at the most minimal percentage, should have been at least 10 times what you're paying me." His smile disappeared. "You went through my private business records? You stole my creative work and built an illegal side business with it." What followed was the most condescending, gaslighting 15 minutes of my life. James told me I was being emotional and showing my inexperience. He said I should be grateful for the opportunity and that no one else would have taken a chance on someone with so little real-world experience. He implied that reporting him would ruin my career because he knew everyone in the industry. Then came the threats. "You signed an NDA when you started. If you breathe a word of our internal business practices to anyone, I'll sue you for everything you have and everything you ever will have." I stood up, suddenly feeling strangely calm. "I quit, effective immediately." His face reddened. "Don't be stupid. You walk out now, you get no severance, no recommendation, nothing." I don't need anything from you, I said. But you should know that I've documented everything. Every shadow contract, every duplicate design, every email where you bragged about exploiting your designers. For the first time, I saw fear flash across his face. You're making a big mistake, Ellie. I walked back to my desk, gathered my personal belongings, and left my resignation letter prominently on my desk. I'd made copies for every designer in the office. I didn't explicitly detail James's fraud in the letter. I simply stated that I discovered unethical business practices that I couldn't in good conscience be associated with, and that anyone with concerns could contact me privately. As I walked out the front door of Harper Design Studio for the last time, I felt simultaneously terrified and exhilarated. I just walked away from what I'd thought was my dream job. I had about 2 months of savings, no immediate job prospects, and potentially made an enemy of someone influential in my industry. But for the first time in 2 years, I also felt like I could breathe. That was yesterday. This morning, my phone has been blowing up with texts from my former colleagues. 3 of them have already called me wanting to know more details. One revealed she'd had suspicions for months but was too afraid to investigate. Another said he'd already contacted a lawyer after reading my letter and confirming some things for himself. I don't know what happens next. I've filed reports with the appropriate agencies about the fraud, and my lawyer friend is helping me prepare a civil case. I'm terrified about finding a new job, about potentially being blacklisted in the industry I love, about the financial uncertainty I'm now facing. But I also feel something I hadn't felt in a long time: pride in myself for standing up for what's right, for refusing to be exploited any longer, for walking away from toxicity disguised as opportunity. I guess sometimes you have to leave your dream job to find your actual dream, working somewhere that values both your creativity and your humanity. Update: 1 week later. I've been completely overwhelmed by the response to my resignation. 4 more designers have quit Harper Design Studio. That's more than half the design team gone in a week. James has apparently been on a rampage, calling us ungrateful and threatening lawsuits against everyone. But here's where it gets interesting. One of the senior designers who quit, Marcus, had apparently been documenting things on his own for almost a year. He was much more thorough than I was and had actual recordings of James admitting to the reselling scheme during a private conversation. In some states that might not be legal, but in our state, only one party needs to consent to a recording, so it's completely admissible. Marcus and I met for coffee yesterday and compared notes. The scope of James's fraud is even bigger than I realized. Conservative estimates put the amount he's made from shadow contracts at around $5 million over the past 3 years, while paying his designers a collective total of about $300,000 during that same period. The most validating thing happened 2 days ago. A former client of Harper Design reached out to me directly after hearing rumors about what happened. They had discovered that James had sold their exclusive branding package to 2 of their direct competitors with only minor color changes. They're absolutely livid and have already filed their own lawsuit against him. 3 other companies have since come forward with similar stories. It seems the house of cards is collapsing quickly. As for me, I've been contacted by 2 legitimate design studios who heard what happened and were impressed by my portfolio and my integrity in standing up to James. I have interviews scheduled next week. Both are offering significantly better compensation than what I was making at Harper. I've also received messages from design students and early career designers thanking me for exposing this kind of exploitation in the industry. Apparently, Harper Design isn't the only studio pulling these kinds of tactics, just one of the most egregious examples. The most unexpected outcome? I've been approached by a well-respected design industry publication that wants to do a feature story on ethical issues in design studios, with my experience as the centerpiece. I'm nervous about the exposure, but it feels important to share this story more widely. There's still a long road ahead with the legal proceedings, and I'm still dealing with anxiety about my future. James has indeed been trying to badmouth me to others in the industry, but it seems to be backfiring as more people learn what was really happening at his studio. For now, I'm focusing on rebuilding. I've started freelancing to cover my bills, and the work is coming in steadily. I'm making more per project than I did in weeks at Harper, which is both wonderful and infuriating when I think about how long I allowed myself to be undervalued. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's to trust my instincts. The red flags were there from the beginning. I just didn't want to see them because I was so enamored with the prestige of where I was working. Never again. Update, 1 month later. Things have escalated quickly. The story has officially broken in the design community after that industry publication ran their piece. They did a thorough investigation, speaking to former employees going back 5 years and uncovering even more clients who had their exclusive designs sold to competitors. The article was shared thousands of times and picked up by some mainstream business publications. James Harper has gone completely silent. His social media accounts have been deactivated, the Harper Design website is under maintenance, and according to former colleagues who still had contact with him, he's fled the country. Rumor has it he's in a country with no extradition treaty with the US, but that's unconfirmed. What is confirmed is that Harper Design Studio is officially shutting down. The remaining employees received notice last week that the company was filing for bankruptcy. They've all been laid off with no severance, which is horrible but not surprising given what we now know about how James operated. The legal consequences are mounting. The district attorney's office has opened a criminal investigation into James for fraud, and at least 12 former clients have joined forces for a class action lawsuit. I've been interviewed by investigators twice now, turning over all my evidence. On a personal note, I accepted a position as a senior designer at Meridian Creative, one of the studios that reached out after hearing my story. The salary is more than double what I was making at Harper, with reasonable hours and direct client contact. My new boss made a point of showing me their transparent profit-sharing model during the interview process and introduced me to current employees who confirmed they're treated fairly. I've also started mentoring 2 design students who reached out after reading the article. We meet for coffee every couple of weeks, and I'm trying to teach them about recognizing fair compensation and ethical business practices early in their careers, all the things I wish someone had taught me. The most unexpected development has been the creation of an industry accountability group. What started as an informal group chat among former Harper designers has evolved into a proper organization with over 100 members from various design studios. We're working on establishing industry standards for fair compensation, creating resources for new designers to recognize exploitation, and building a reporting system for unethical practices. It's been emotionally exhausting dealing with the aftermath, particularly the legal aspects. I still have moments of doubt and fear. But then I'll get a message from a designer who left a toxic workplace after reading my story, or I'll see the respect in my new colleagues' eyes when they discuss a project with me, and I know I made the right choice. I've been reflecting a lot on how I ended up working for someone like James for so long. I think it comes down to the mythology we create around dream jobs and paying your dues. We're taught that suffering is necessary for success, that exploitation is just how things are, and that questioning these systems means you're not dedicated enough. What I've learned is that true dedication to your craft means valuing it properly. It means not allowing others to exploit your passion for their gain. It means recognizing that good work deserves fair compensation, and that toxic environments don't produce better design, they just produce burned out, undervalued designers. Update, 6 months later. Half a year since I walked out of Harper Design, and my life is unrecognizable, in all the best ways. The legal proceedings against James Harper have advanced significantly. He was located in Bali and is now fighting extradition, but his assets in the US have been frozen. The class action lawsuit from former clients secured a default judgment when he failed to appear or send legal representation. The court has ordered the liquidation of all company assets to partially compensate the defrauded businesses. As for us designers, we've received some vindication as well. A separate class action suit on behalf of former employees was successful, and we've been awarded back pay based on the estimated value of our work that was resold. I received a check last week that nearly made me faint. It won't make up for all the nights and weekends I lost, but it's significant enough to give me financial security I've never had before. The Industry Accountability Group has grown to over 500 members nationwide. We've published a Fair Design Practices pledge that dozens of legitimate studios have signed, committing to transparent client relationships, proper credit for designers' work, and fair compensation practices. We're working with design schools to incorporate ethics and business education into their curriculum so new graduates aren't as vulnerable as I was. My new position at Meridian Creative has been everything I hoped for. I'm leading my own team now, working directly with clients, and actually leaving the office by 6 p.m. most days. My work is better than ever. It turns out creativity flourishes when you're not exhausted and anxious all the time. The most surreal experience was being asked to speak at my alma mater's design department about ethics in the industry. Standing in front of a classroom of eager students who looked at me like I had wisdom to impart, when just 6 months ago I felt like the world's biggest fool, was a powerful moment of coming full circle. I've had a lot of time to reflect on the psychological impact of those 2 years under James's manipulation. The way he isolated us by making us work impossible hours, preventing direct client contact, and fostering competition rather than collaboration among designers. The way he dangled recognition and advancement that never materialized. The calculated mix of rare praise and constant criticism that kept us in a perpetual state of proving ourselves. It was textbook emotional abuse, just in a professional setting rather than a personal one. And like many abuse victims, I normalized it, made excuses for it, and blamed myself rather than the perpetrator. The healing process hasn't been linear. I still have moments of doubt, particularly when taking creative risks. I sometimes hear James's voice in my head criticizing my choices. But those moments are becoming rarer as I build new, healthier professional relationships and experiences. The most meaningful development has been the community that's formed among former Harper designers. We meet monthly for dinner, share job opportunities, review each other's portfolios, and support each other through the ongoing legal processes. From a toxic workplace emerged genuine friendships and professional connections that I now value deeply. I've even started my own small side business creating design education materials specifically focused on the business aspects of creative work, contracts, negotiation, pricing, client relationships, and recognizing exploitation. It's become surprisingly popular, which speaks to how many designers struggle with these aspects of their careers. If I could go back and tell myself one thing on that first day at Harper Design, it would be this: your work has value. Your time has value. Your creativity has value. And anyone who tries to convince you to devalue any of these things does not have your best interests at heart. I used to think of my dream job in terms of prestigious clients, beautiful office space, and the respect of having a certain studio's name on my resume. Now I understand that a truly dream job is one where your contribution is recognized, your creativity is respected, your compensation is fair, and your well-being matters. Sometimes walking away from what you thought was your dream is the only way to find what you actually deserve. Final update, 1 year later. Today marks exactly 1 year since I walked out of Harper Design Studio, and what a year it's been. The legal saga has finally concluded. James Harper was extradited 3 months ago and recently accepted a plea deal on multiple counts of fraud. He's serving a 5-year sentence and has been ordered to pay restitution to both clients and former employees. The design community articles about his sentencing have provided a satisfying sense of closure. Our class action suit resulted in each designer receiving compensation proportional to how long they worked at the studio and how much work was proven to have been resold. The final amount I received was enough to pay off my student loans entirely, something I never thought would be possible before my 40s. The Industry Accountability Group has become an official nonprofit organization with chapters in 12 cities. We've published comprehensive guidelines for ethical design business practices that have been adopted by major design organizations as recommended standards. I serve on the board and help review cases of reported exploitation, connecting affected designers with legal resources. My position at Meridian Creative evolved into a new role as their Ethics and Designer Advocacy Director, a position they created specifically for me. I split my time between client design work and ensuring that our studio maintains the highest ethical standards in client relationships and designer treatment. Several other studios have since created similar positions. My side business providing business education for designers has grown beyond anything I imagined. The online courses now serve thousands of designers worldwide, and I've published a book called Design Your Career: Navigating the Business Side of Creativity that has become recommended reading in several design programs. The most profound change has been in my relationship with my own creativity. For years, my design work was shaped by fear of criticism, fear of not meeting impossible standards, fear of losing my dream job. Now I create from a place of confidence and authenticity. My portfolio finally feels like a true reflection of my abilities rather than a collection of work designed to please someone else. I've mentored 11 young designers this year, helping them navigate job offers, review contracts, and recognize red flags in potential employers. Watching them advocate for themselves from the beginning of their careers, something I failed to do, has been incredibly rewarding. The former Harper designers have remained close. 3 of us actually started a small collaborative studio on the side where we take on projects we're passionate about, splitting profits equally and maintaining complete transparency with clients about who's doing the work. It's everything Harper Design claimed to be but wasn't. Last week, I was invited to give the keynote address at a major design conference, speaking directly to studio owners and senior designers about creating ethical workplaces. Standing on that stage, I shared my story without shame or embarrassment, knowing that every difficult part of that experience has helped create positive change in an industry I love. If I could speak to anyone currently in a situation like mine at Harper Design, I would tell them this: what feels impossible today, walking away, speaking up, demanding better, becomes the foundation you build your real success upon tomorrow. The true nightmare wasn't leaving my dream job, it was staying in it far too long, believing I didn't deserve better. Looking back now, I realize that walking out that day wasn't the biggest mistake of my life I initially feared. It was the moment I finally recognized my own worth, as a designer, as a professional, and as a human being deserving of respect. Sometimes your dream job isn't about the prestige or the clients or the cool office. Sometimes it's simply about being valued for your contribution and treated with basic dignity. And sometimes, you have to create that dream yourself.